Majority, would you like to take the roll, please?
Sure. Plotsky?
Present.
Willingham? Kuhn? Gillespie? Lakakis?
Yeah.
Mayo is excused. Reedy?
For my birthday.
Reedy and Kuhn. And Grimm.
Moving forward. Is there a motion to approve the previous minutes?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. I seconded it.
Yeah.
All in favor of approving the previous minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Meeting, previous minutes are approved. Okay, item 2. Requiring programmatic information request for legislative action and codifying existing practices.
That's Conway's item. Is Conway here? Oh, I'm
No.
sorry, you were
Yes.
designated prime sponsor.
Yes.
Yep.
Did you want to speak about it?
Yes,
Okay, please
absolutely.
go ahead.
Okay. What I want to do is just, I'm going to read 3 paragraphs from a memo that I sent to Chairwoman Cunningham and Majority Leader Dennis Sweeney. But I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to codify the request for legislative action practices and provide greater clarity and discussion of RLAs in our committee meetings. Because there's really no set type of a format for the county executives departments to use when they're coming before the legislature. And actually, these are quick, short paragraphs that really explains exactly what we're looking to do. Discussions in committee meetings of the Oakland County Legislature have a very predictable cadence, which they do. Legislators ask for how many individuals a program served in the prior year. The presenter indicates that they don't have that information, but we'll get back to the members after the meeting. Legislators will then often ask about trends or conjecture as to what the numbers may suggest. Not only does this hurt the ability of legislators to discuss the legislative proposal at hand, but it has the practical effect of slowing down committee meetings, ensuring that the members of the legislature have critical information going into a committee meeting will improve both the quality and the pace of these meetings. Also, our staff met with the county executive staff back in August, and beyond suggestions for the resolution, which we have incorporated into the amended version, both staff members were generally supportive of the idea. They expressed that the departments do not have clear guidance as to the type and scope of information required in RLAs. As a result, we as legislators often see a very large variance in the amount of backup or other information provided in the RLA process. So codifying the RLA process and requiring the information for this resolution calls for, will give the county executive a specific set of requirements for RLAs. And lastly, in meetings with my staff, again, with the county executive staff, we were surprised to learn that the RLA process is completely uncodified in its current form. While the legislature may and does informally ask for certain information being provided in informal discussions, there is no rule or firm guidance which actually requires the executive and his departments to send any information at all. So this is really less than ideal because it envisions that the relationship between the county executive and the legislature will exist in its current form in perpetuity. The legislature should provide rules for the future so that the county executive staff can follow our rules and provide us with the information needed. And again, as I noted in the first paragraph, quite often we do ask questions about how many people it may serve, how much per person, and so on. And the individuals making the presentation don't have those answers and have to get back to us. So what this will do, this will codify our practices and make it easier for us to make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Majority Council is requested to speak.
Yep. So as indicated last month in law, this was voted down in law because the majority office staunchly opposes this. This would control what the majority office's functions are. We run the RLA system. We get all the information. We amend the RLA form as needed. We do not want to be constrained by any codification of it because currently we can ask for any information we want at any time we want. We've never had a problem with the county executive not giving us any information. We are not looking for an onslaught of unnecessary, irrelevant information for all RLAs, irrespective of what they are for. So that's essentially our position. We're not interested in having this control our office, and that's exactly what it would do.
This doesn't restrain or.
It would
No,
actually
no, it
codify
doesn't.
what my office does, yes,
No,
thank
no,
you.
It would make it a lot.
I'm
much more-
actually majority counsel who runs my office,
Oh, I
so
understand
I
that.
can
I
speak to
understand
what
that,
my
but
office does.
I disagree. I
think-
disagree.
That's
I
fine.
think Mr.
All
Morello's
right.
perspective is that it does
Excuse me.
codifies it. Yes?
I'm sorry. I'd just like people to ask to be recognized, because we don't
Sorry.
have order to follow.
So-
And Mr. Reedy was ahead of you. So
Go ahead,
if you
Mr.
don't
Reedy.
mind, Mr. Reedy.
Thank you. I appreciate and thank, all the legislative staff in every branch. Does an incredible job for all of us in the county. I think the majority's office, when it comes to the RLA process, and in fact, all the processes for our meetings and how we work, does an incredible job. The law committee last month voted this down negatively. I'm going to do the same thing again tonight, urge all my colleagues to do the same. And anything that would encumber or gum up the efficiency that we have in the majority's office, I think is something we should oppose.
Counselor, please.
We're good.
No, okay. I personally, I feel like this is trying to put a checklist on top, a pro forma checklist on top of everything where it might not always be applicable. So I think it is something under a jury office's purview. It might not be necessary, and I feel that we can get the information we need when we need it. But that's my personal opinion. Is there a motion?
Move it out with a negative recommendation.
Second, Mr. Reedy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, 3 opposed.
No, not 3 opposed, 1 opposed is not on the
I
committee.
don't vote, sorry.
Sorry.
Wrong meeting. I'm still opposed.
Faked me out, Mr. Berger.
We figured.
Moment.
All right, item 3.
Please table it, request of sponsor, as is item 4 and 5,
Thank you, I closed. All right.
and
6.
7, sorry. 7 is
And
also
7,
tabled.
okay. 6, requiring advance notice of acts of the legislature. We just had an extensive discussion. This was already just recently addressed at the previous meeting. How would you like to proceed with this? This is Mr. Grant, right?
Well, there may be some different members.
Oh, true,
yeah,
Mr. Grant,
yeah.
please take the floor.
Okay. Okay, back by unpopular demand. We did cover this in more, I'll be a little more brief, but I know there's different members of different committees. I'm looking to reform what we do a little bit. One of the most important things is that anytime a member is asked to vote, they have sufficient time to review all the materials, do any research they think is necessary, speak with any constituents or constituent groups they think that might give us valuable input. You can't do that without at least 2 days' notice on the resolutions and laws. And that's what I'm asking, is that we require, anytime there's a vote, to give 48 hours in advance to all the materials necessary so we can make the most intelligent vote that we can do. On Rule 11, Rule 11 says, we understand what the rules are, we're going to change the rules. And I just don't think that's right if there's any objection by a member. So if there's one objection by a member for Rule 11, that should be able to knock it down and allow the rules to stay as they are, because we've spent a lot of time as a legislature deciding what our rules are. And third is on the abstentions. If you're faced with a vote when you haven't had time to review the material, it's hard to say yes, and it's also hard to say no because it might be worthwhile. So I think the abstention clause should add not just if there's a financial or pecuniary interest, but also lack of time given the member, to review the materials. That's my resolution, 92.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Grimm?
Are you still tabling this?
No, this
It was
was
not
voted
tabled.
down.
Oh, okay.
This was
Not
voted
tabled.
negative recommendation
Ah,
last
okay.
last
Vote
meeting.
around on this.
Did you want to address the importance of section 11s?
Oh, I mean, I can certainly speak to it. The whole point of Rule 11 is because often we get things that are not known at the time the agenda goes out. Often, the 48-hour notice is not really workable because in the majority of cases of Rule 11s, they come up within those 48 hours. So we don't know often until the afternoon of the meeting what is going to happen at that meeting, which is why the whole purpose of Rule 11 exists.
But there's a mechanism for voting for Rule 11. If
Yes,
everyone-
but in your,
If
yeah,
it's
hold on,
reasonable, everyone
hold
can go
on.
along with it.
If you could wait for me to finish speaking.
Well, you're not the chair of the committee, so.
No, but I
I'm
was
gonna-
recognized,
I'm
so
Yeah.
thank you.
recognizing her.
But don't tell a member they can't
No, but
challenge what you say.
the chair recognized me, so I can speak. Thank you for your concern. In also with regard to the other item, where is it? The alternative in which one person can vote against it, that's apples to oranges from what you are referring to, because in the ARPA, the consent agenda, all that would do, one member voting no, would kick it to the regular agenda. It would still be on the agenda that night. This would remove it from the agenda entirely in your,
Well, there's no,
I'm still going. This would remove it from the agenda entirely for that entire month, and it would be for something that necessarily would be time-sensitive because it was a Rule 11. So that would be wholly problematic for many of the grants that come in. I mean, Dave Riley could speak to that because many of the things that come in late like that are things like grants that where we have very limited time in which to respond, to accept, or to apply for. Thank you. So there are very many things that happen at the last minute that we just cannot plan for, which is the whole point of Rule 11 existing.
well, that's your view of Rule 11.
Well, no, that's what
The
Rule
point-
11 was created
The
for.
point is, if it's reasonable, then members will vote for it unanimously, which is, by the way, what happens in most cases. Rule 11s are usually, okay, this is the problem. But if in case there's a circumstance where the 48-hour rule has not been sufficiently appreciated, there should be an opportunity to stop what's going on. So I'm not saying we can't use Rule 11, I'm just saying there should be an opportunity to stick to the rules, because that's why we have them.
Including Rule 11.
Chair Cunningham, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you don't
could you
mind,
please-
but respecting other committee
Are there
members
other
if they want to go.
members who- Okay. Chair.
So I'm going to amplify a little bit of our majority council's points because I think they are really worth amplifying. One is we meet once a month, and that does hamper, especially because of other timeline-related things related to our agenda being constructed. Rule 11 is established as a mechanism to do exactly what Rebecca said, which is something, a grant, a state legislation is enacted, a bond thing that we know is coming. Or in my case, our March meeting, we had a notification, local law, we wanted to get moving through the process, and we didn't want to wait an entire month for that local law to be sent to committee that would then start the process. It's in that case, it was something that was just to kind of facilitate this very important local law from taking hold. So we have it for a reason. This would restrict our nimbleness, and I think it's a bad idea. I'm seeing a theme here of the minority caucus wanting to take the vote thresholds from simple majorities to 2/3, or one person can object, and Rebecca's point on the consent agenda is right on. The consent agenda is a specific governance tactic to adopt things that in multiple kind of, in groups. And as Rebecca noted, if one person objects, it just goes into the regular order of having to vote on it. So I don't think that the consent agenda is a good model for that because it's entirely different. So I don't support these.
Is there a motion?
Do you have, can I ask a question
Sure,
to the chair?
briefly, thank you.
Do you support the idea of a 48-hour notice?
No, I think I was pretty clear that I don't.
Oh,
Because you talked about, even if the Rule 11 were amended from my proposal, would the committee still be against the 48-hour notice?
I think that's a hypothetical that, if you were going to represent this, we would deal with it at that time.
Well, we've asked that question before, we've amended. Would the committee support, because I'm willing to
I
get half
don't
of
think,
those.
I don't think they would personally, not to speak for everybody, but.
I think you are.
And also I've been advised that we're not supposed to question other members, so,
Well, I've never heard that before.
anyway.
Of course we can question them.
Is there a motion?
I'll
Is there
make a
any further
motion.
questions on this? Or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for a
Second.
negative recommendation.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kuhn, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Grimm is opposed. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
You're welcome.
Item 7 is table at request of sponsor. Item 8.
Item 8, Mr. Bergdorf.
Yeah, I don't know who was here for the law committee meeting. and who
Everybody,
wasn't.
because we ran so late. Everybody was here.
Oh, this is
Well,
true, they were all waiting.
I was sort of hoping that
Bill couldn't hear
I
very
could give the 2-minute version,
The real
which
2-minute version?
which turned into the 4-minute version. I apologize.
I'll go for the 2-minute version.
It's me. But I was hoping we could have a broader discussion here on, or at a later meeting, if you like, about some of the, what I call the aspirational components of this. Can we create a mechanism to have longer committee meetings? Can we create a mechanism to have committee chairs hold hearings on important subject matters? And in order to do that, the first component was cutting down on the amount of committees to be more efficient so that you don't have committees that are canceled every other month or that members come in from everywhere around the county for a 5-minute agenda. Is there some way to blend that? Those are really the aspirational things that I wanted to throw open, I thought, to the Rules Committee originally, just to see, is there any common ground on any of those things?
Mr. Reedy?
Sure, I have questions more than comments.
Sure.
Or, I mean, we've had hearings before in committees, and it's been fairly rare in my, brief tenure here in the legislature. And we do, I think fairly frequently ask folks usually in the county, the county offices to come down to discuss, pieces of legislation, RLAs that are before us. So, we do, it is rare, we do hold hearings. Now, we generally request folks when we've done that to come speak to us. So I guess one question I do have is.
I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to understand when those meetings are. I know Economic Development had some meetings where they invited economic developers to come in and give their perceptions on what we could do.
Just like when we had, the last economic development, when we had the folks from the,
Council.
The CAP.
yes,
Cap
yeah,
Center,
yeah, come down and speak to us, and, we had a hearing with the former district attorney, last year. Things that have come up on a, on a
So we have the
rare but
ability
as
to do
needed basis, and so I think we do the ability to do that. But I'll ask two questions. One, if we ever were to request someone to come talk to us and hang out with us, and they said no, I don't think we have any ability to compel. Do we have an ability, right? We can't compel someone, right? We can't, we do?
Yeah.
We can eventually
Well,
subpoena folks to come down, I mean.
We have subpoena
I don't
authority.
think so.
I thought we looked at this a while ago. For
I mean,
county
well, we
agencies.
can
And not
look
trying
into
to,
it, but.
No,
we're trying to
I
set the
understand.
table for doing that. I guess the other question is, I mean, look, I think there are times when, like when we know we have some matters that will have a robust discussion where committee meetings are likely to go beyond their 30-minute mark. Like when we set the schedule for committee meetings, if we do think a committee meeting is very likely to go long, like do we have the ability prior to those meetings to?
Yeah, we just did.
Right,
Just
we
did.
did
Yes,
this,
we
right?
did that
So-
for this. This
Well,
is normally at
Okay,
6:30.
yeah, no, you're right. So we do, I think we have the, I think the thing is, it's not that we don't have the ability to do this, it's maybe you're looking at like the regularity that, we do these sorts of things as committee. 'Cause I do think we have the abilities to do both, right? It's just sort of the frequency of when we need to or go ahead and, and do these things, so to speak.
Well,
Is there a question here?
No, I think I answered my own question
All right.
during
All right.
deliberation,
If I may,
Madam Chair.
May I recognize Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you. Just to clarify for the committee, this would not allow for hearings, which you of course already have the ability to do. This this legislation would allow for public hearings, which is a term of art under state law, so it would just allow us to hold public hearings. So I don't think that's what you intended it to do.
Well, that's why I raised this aspirationally for constructive input. There may be a time when we may want to call an actual public hearing beyond something that was for a local law where we were mandated for. I'm not sure what the answer is to that. But is there anything that should preclude a member from asking a chair to hold a meeting of some sort?
I guess my
Don't believe
roundabout
they're
way
precluded now.
was to say, I think we can do that now. So, notwithstanding the consolidations.
Well,
right,
I've
yeah.
talked to a lot of members on both sides who say, we never really get to talk to people. We don't have an opportunity to ask questions. People come in during either the public venue, the public venue before our monthly meeting, where they come in on a public hearing notice, and someone will get up and talk about their association or how this is going to impact their business, et cetera. We don't have the ability to ask anybody a question.
So we don't in that forum, but
But where do we have an opportunity to do
standing is
that?
that we have a mechanism. Yeah, so after the meeting, you can talk to them as much as you wish to, but no.
So you gotta
it's-
stalk somebody to ask a question.
Okay.
I'm not
I have
aware of
other
another
people.
legislative body which calls people in and then no members can speak to them. There's not a mechanism to do that.
I have a few more people needing to speak this
Yep.
evening. Mr. Kuhn? do you agree with that?
Yeah, just on the, and Mr. Reedy kind of made this point also. If a particular meeting has a large agenda that's gonna go over 30 minutes, the chair of that committee just talks to staff and says, which we did for the last meeting, we're gonna need more than 30 minutes for this.
I guess what I'm suggesting is if it hadn't happened this week, it hasn't happened in the 10 years that I have been here. And I have heard on multiple occasions that, I'm sorry, we've got to cut off debate on this. I'm sorry, there are no more questions on this because we have to move on, because we have the next committee meeting. Everyone's in the wings and
Right.
we're chattering up the system.
Okay.
So
Well, Paul,
I guess.
this isn't like, everybody takes their turn. This
Right.
isn't like you
Yeah.
respond to everybody, okay?
Well,
So let
this-
me, can I finish?
Sure, absolutely.
Points that I was making? All right, thank you. So that's up to the individual chair people of the committee to schedule it, and it's up to the individual members of the committee to look at the agenda and talk to the chair if they think there's a lot on it, but we don't need to change anything for that to happen. And the last meeting wasn't the only time we did it. We had a meeting with, we had, whatever you want to call it, meeting, hearing with the district attorney in 2024 that went for like 2 hours because we knew it was going to be a lengthy meeting where people wanted to ask questions. So I think we do have the flexibility when it's appropriate, and we've demonstrated that, to tailor our meetings to the subject matter. So I don't necessarily think we need to change anything to do that. I think maybe just people need to recognize that we can do that. And then on I mean, we are a legislative body, so I don't know any legislative body that has like members of the public come in and like there's a dialogue with members of the public. I mean, there's meetings where they come in and they say what they want to say, but there isn't usually a back and forth. I don't know, like Congress doesn't do that, the Assembly doesn't do that.
Sure they do, they have public hearings.
I
Paul?
think he wants you to.
I'm sorry, you said you weren't aware.
They are hearings and there are meetings where there are witnesses, and the witnesses are questioned by members of the legislature. That's a little different than just having a dialogue between the legislature and the members of the public about any issue. If you want to have that dialogue, I mean, you have that with your constituents or with anybody, I mean, but that's outside the confines of a hearing. And then in terms of getting rid of some of these committees, I mean, I don't know, I think that the current portfolio, number of committees and their portfolio makes sense. I realize that sometimes we have meetings that are very short, that can sometimes be, a challenge to schedules, but I also know it has to happen. That, like in personnel, we will have meetings of the personnel committee where there is 1 or 2 items on the agenda, and while that may be inconvenient, those things have to be dealt with that month, so we have to have a short meeting. We can't just postpone it till the next month. So I'm all set.
Legislative hospital.
I was just going to make a statement that this would impact the chair's discretion. A lot of these things fall under your discretion or whomever's chairing the meetings, their discretion. If they want to hold an informational session where you can invite people in and gather information, that should be at the discretion of the chair. Or it should be some communication between that individual member that has some concerns and the chair directly.
Thank you.
I'm-
Mr. Green?
Yes, Madam Chair. My frustration sometimes is that we watch the clock too much, and then, oh, it's 5:30, we got to shut down, and in many cases, I didn't get a chance to speak. So I think, I think it goes with the job. If we have long meetings, that's part of our job.
It certainly is. We have the flexibility now to schedule meetings for a longer period of time as needed. Just a comment.
Madam
Is there a
Chairwoman, I'm willing to table this,
Okay.
take the concepts or the concerns of folks here and see if there's any of this that we can salvage to the extent that it might be acceptable. Everything that I have suggested would be under the care, custody, and control of the chair, the committee leaders, and the majority. So I thought I was making an attempt to be constructive to add to the dialogue of this body. But if this body, obviously, if that is not an interest of increasing communication or dialogue, et cetera, I will understand that. But I'm gonna, hope springs eternal, and I'm going to try to see if there are some niblets of this that maybe if you would like to sponsor. I would love to support it. This is not a pride of authorship. This is not a controlled thing. This is there a way that we can make the functioning of our committee system better? That's all.
Can I just add one thing?
Last word, because it's you.
So
Chair.
I also think it's very relevant to consider that we just made CAB changes. So that will affect our agendas. So notwithstanding all the, consolidation of committee jurisdictional areas, which I agree with Jeff, it seems like how we have it are sort of organized pretty well. We also haven't seen the effect of the CAB changes on our agendas, and I think we should. I also think that some of the areas like lumping aging under a category, what message does that say about our focus on elder care, which is the title of the committee, and that's just one example. It's got a little Doge-like feel to it, I have to say.
Yeah, well, that is
Um,
certainly not the,
Okay.
certainly not the intent. The intent is actually anti-Doge. It's to bring more communication to government, more understanding
Right,
to
no, I got it.
government.
So that
So I
wasn't a
kind of
question.
resent that comment.
Okay, well, it wasn't a question. And I also think that just underscoring what we have done over the past little over a year is we've had several special committee meetings, joint committee meetings to tackle, you know, the DA discussion was one, we're having one next week, which is focused on airport update, a select, you know, issue. I think we can contemplate our discussion on the medical examiner. I mean, after that discussion, I know people were chomping at the bit to ask questions. I can envision us having sort of a special focused committee meeting on that, just that. So my point is, we're very nimble as it is with our committee chairs, with scheduling, and I think that that offers needed flexibility.
Thank you. I believe that brings us to the end of our, this is being withdrawn. right?
Or table.
It's not
Table
being
is
withdrawn,
Is that
it's
it?
being
Okay.
tabled.
Sorry, table, pardon me. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.